It was November 15th, 2019, and I had just walked in the door from my last video project of the year. This was my second year in business, and so I'd pushed myself super hard that year. The first thing I did that day was make a list of all of the things I was going to accomplish by the end of the year. I had a free schedule, so I could do basically whatever I wanted. Turns out my body had other plans. I didn't know it at the time, but I had just burned out. I'd been consistently working 60 hours a week, and suddenly I had the ability to work 0 hours a week. Instead of getting my to-do list done, I watched a lot of Netflix, a lot of YouTube, and if I had the energy, I might sit down and play video games with a friend. I was utterly drained, emotionally exhausted, and totally detached from reality. There was no amount of willpower that could have made me do the things on that to-do list. My body crashed so hard. And I know I'm not the only one who's gone through something like this. As a matter of fact, burnout is becoming increasingly common. The World Health Organization defines burnout as an occupational phenomenon specifically arising from chronic workplace stress that has not been successfully managed. Note that they call this an occupational phenomenon rather than a medical condition. It is a result of work. For the last several years, Insightful Analytics has published a report on workplace stress every year. And every year, the numbers get worse. According to 2024's report, 90% of employees report feeling stressed at work. 44% of employees have thought about quitting their jobs in the next 6 months because it's stressful. 86% have worked past 7 p.m. in the last week. 90% of employees say they get a sense of dread on Sundays due to the coming work week. 71% of employees have woken up in the night thinking about work. And 68% of employees have felt burned out in the past year. It's no wonder why we feel burned out. Though no one is immune, perfectionists and people who are highly engaged at work are more likely to burn out. Now, this is likely because if you are highly engaged, that means you have high standards but are more likely to push yourself to exhaustion. You have a strong desire for success, but that also means that you have a hard time saying no. You're willing to put in long hours, but that also means you likely prioritize work over your well-being. If you're goal-oriented and disciplined, then you could also be overly critical of yourself and others. And if you're someone who embraces challenges and consistently strives for improvement, it is also likely that you love control and struggle to delegate. I know personally I am a 10 out of 10 on this list. I am a perfect candidate for burnout. Now, some people try to solve burnout by leaving their job and finding a new one, but then 6 to 12 months later, they find themselves in the same situation again. Clearly, this isn't the solution. Some people break free from the 9 to 5 only to find themselves in a situation where they're working from like 5 a.m. to 9 p.m. Clearly, being self-employed often isn't the solution either. Now, maybe for you, becoming a hermit in the woods is actually a legitimate option, but I think for most of us, it probably isn't. There has to be another way. Now, when things get hard at work, we're really good at turning the blame on others. Maybe it's your boss, maybe it's your coworkers, there's unrealistic expectations, there's too many deadlines, the workload is too big, maybe it's your partner at home, maybe it's someone else's poor communication. If you work yourself, maybe it's your client's fault. But the reality is, it is our responsibility to take control of our own well-being. And this is an option no matter how little or how much control you have over your work. I'd like to say that I have never come close to burning out again, but that wouldn't be true. I have come very close to burning out more times than I can count since 2019. Now here I would argue that there are two different directions you can go. There might be more, but these are the two that are in my brain. Number one is what we're going to talk about today, and number two would be simple living. If you haven't heard of simple living before, it's a lifestyle that emphasizes getting rid of the stress, clutter, and busyness in our lives to allow us to live in alignment with our values. People who practice simple living sometimes trade things like debt, an overcrowded calendar, and things that other people might consider to be necessities for the ability to work less and have more autonomy in their lives so they can actually do the things that align with their values rather than doing the things that society tells them they should be doing. Now, I'm personally trying to balance some measure of both of these things. This will largely depend for you on what you value and what you think is important in your life. Now, I'm certainly not the only one who has taken an approach to manage burnout over the years, but I thought it would be helpful to share as someone who has consistently come close to burning out, and every time these things have backed me away from the edge. They're very simple, but simple does not mean that they're easy to actually do and implement. And to back up that this works more broadly than just myself, neuroscientists Dr. Patrick Porter and Julia Arndt ran a study in 2020 on how taking responsibility for your own well-being affected sleep, stress, and job performance. For this initial study, they recruited 20 top performers, executives, and entrepreneurs. In the study, participants spent 1 hour per week in developing better habits and routines in areas like time management, boundaries, and self-care. During the study, they found that all 20 of the initial participants were clinically depressed, and they had no idea. After the 10-week study was over, they found that stress decreased in the group by 45%. Depression reduced by up to 71%. Sleep quality improved by up to 48%. They even had a 26% increase in work performance and had a 41% more positive mindset. And this was measured using a bunch of scientific tools that are standards in the industry. They are currently running this study with a larger group to really validate their findings, but this was enough information to at least back up the things that I have done in my life. I do want to just say, if you are properly burned out right now, this is not for you. You do need to rest. You can't just work your way through actual burnout. I've been there, I understand, and that's what the scientific and medical communities say as well. But for the rest of us, the solution is actually almost eye-rollingly simple. It's just very hard to actually implement. Are you ready for the solution? Morning routine, movement, reflection, and breathing room in my calendar. That's it. Now, before you turn the video off and say, this is stupid, no. It's all about the mindset involved with these things. So if you're approaching this with a, this won't work kind of mindset, that doesn't work. It really doesn't. You need to actually walk into it going, no, I want to do these things because they will allow me to do the other things I need to do, rather than I'm just gonna try to squeeze these extra arbitrary things in around all the stuff I need to do already. I'm so overwhelmed. The key is each of these things, or some version of these things, needs to be meaningful to you personally, not just something that some guy in the internet told you you should be doing. Every time I don't do these things, I start to feel the burnout creeping in, and as soon as I start implementing these practices, in 4 to 5 days, my burnout symptoms start going away. So I just want to take a minute and talk through what I'm doing for each of these things that have been helpful for me personally. Maybe you can take some inspiration for this in building your own version of this system. Let me just talk you through what I'm currently doing for a morning routine. Adjust this to whatever feels right for your life. I have found a morning routine to be so much more important for me when I am running my own business from home and making videos on the internet, rather than when I'm going to work every day, because I think I need some sort of structure in my day that helps me work the best. Now, chances are you have some version of a morning routine, so it's not like you need to add a bunch of things to it. The totality of my morning routine from the time I wake up until I'm sitting at my desk is under an hour. Now, I tend to start my mornings with an hour of writing, and then I do my morning routine and then go back to my desk. I've talked about that in other videos, but that's what works for me. For me right now, my morning routine looks like 15-minute walk, 5 to 10 minutes of mobility and stretching, 5 to 10 minutes of some sort of spiritual practice. For you, that could be meditation, it could be journaling, it could be reading a book, whatever you want it to be. I eat breakfast, which takes like 15 minutes, and then I get dressed and, do my hair and brush my teeth and that kind of thing. And then I'm ready for the day. Now, you can make this as scientific or as vibe-based as you want, but either way, it needs to be something that works for you, that makes you excited to get up in the morning. If you're looking for more on this, I have a video called Morning Routines for Normal People. I'll leave it down in the description. Number 2 is movement. I really enjoy getting out and moving around, so this is not difficult for me. It is difficult though to get my butt up from my desk and stopping working and actually taking the time to go do this. So in addition to the morning walk, I often go on a walk in the evening after dinner with Abby and our dog Charlie. We also go to the gym. Right now we're going 3 to 4 days a week. And then I'll get in 2 to 3 rounds of disc golf per week, depending on the week. Last year, I got like 11,000 steps a day on my Apple Watch, so nothing crazy. Adapt this to you, adjust it however you need. The point is though, you need some sort of movement for both your body and your mind to feel well. Journaling or reflection, this is just super important to understand what's going on inside of you. I used to go weeks or even sometimes months between reflection sessions, and I knew this needed to change. So after this burnout thing in 2019, I implemented something called the weekly planning session. This is a 1-hour meeting with myself every week where I sit down, I look back at what was happening, reflect on what's going on, and look ahead to the coming week. This is one of my favorite things to do, and it is truly one of the few things that has deeply changed my life. I have a video about it, I'll leave it linked down in the description. This year, I've been experimenting with doing a more frequent version of this, just the reflection part, not the planning part, where I'm actually taking time to think not just about my goals, but also how I'm feeling emotionally, physically, and mentally. Just a quick touch point every day. I'll make a video about it if I keep doing it. I've been doing it for a couple months now, and I'm not quite sure how I feel about it. The last thing is breathing room on my calendar. And this is the one I personally struggle with the most. When I'm doing well as a person, I am very good at this, but all of the other times, this is where burnout starts to creep up on me. For me personally, I've found the minimum threshold for me to be doing okay as a person is 1 full day off per week. That means like nothing on the calendar. That doesn't mean chores around the house or that kind of thing. It means like I am off and I can use that day to do whatever I want to do. Often that's just rest and do things that are relaxing and energizing for me. The second thing is like a half day somewhere in there for Abby and I to clean the house, prep food, all the things we need to do to maintain our lives. And then the third thing is at least one evening that is totally free during the week that I can do whatever I want. Obviously, more than this is ideal, but most of the time life isn't ideal. I know my tendency when I get behind is to try to push harder, to skip days off, to skip workouts, to work longer hours, and it never works for more than just like a week or 2 at a time. In fact, right now I'm at the end of a 4-week work sprint and I am creeping up on that burnout. It is coming in so hard. I haven't had a day off in almost 4 weeks and it's getting to me, to be honest. So about a week ago, I found myself feeling very, very close to burnout and realizing I need to be making time to do all of these practices. I cannot skip them or else I will burn out. And honestly, I will say, even though I haven't had a full day off, I feel so much better because of it. Have a full day off scheduled this week, so I should be okay and working my way back into a more sustainable routine, but just wanted to be really honest and share that with you guys because I'm not perfect on this and you won't be either, but that's just part of being human. So if you've watched all the way to the end and you have something that you do when you're getting close to burnout that helps you move away from it, can you leave that down in the comments? I know it's always very helpful to me when you guys share that stuff, and it will be helpful for other people watching the video too. Thanks so much for being here, and we will see you next week.